Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you.
Yeah, expertise, specifically in some of the formats that are very long going, modern, pauper, pioneer.
Legacy,
exactly. So we're gonna question you on the meta game that is actual right now. But before we do, you wanted to see Mengu, we made it happen. So please like, subscribe, comment in the video. What do you think are your favorite modern decks as of right now? What do you think is number one or what deck fell off? So comment and then we can get you more of the up-to-date content that make you decide what a deck to choose. We have a top 5 modern deck. My first question is, which deck didn't make it and why?
All right, the 6th place, let's carry 6th place honorable mention is Rex's Shadow. Rex's Shadow used to be the best deck, the deck that actually brought the ban of Lures of the Dream Den. With its ban, the deck basically is similarly to Blue-Red Murktide, but I think just doesn't have the Murktide Regent card, and that makes it, well, a little bit worse. The deck completely disappeared after Lure's ban, but was brought back with Ledger Shredder printing. The deck is solid. I think that overall it might even be better against 4-color, but it loses, I think, in the mirror match. Like against blue-red, it's a little bit disadvantaged because the absence of Murktide, plus just being a 3-color, you shock a lot, and yeah. So I think overall, Rex's Shadow is an excellent choice, but a slightly worse one than blue-red Murktide.
So you say because one of the advantages of the deck was that it was very cheap, very interactive, that other decks caught up a little, that this advantage is not as strong anymore?
Well, before you were able to grind through the 4-color and Blue-Red Murktide just by picking back Lures and going like Lures Death Shadow. And then your opponent first had to deal with Lures, and then there's still the Death Shadow going on. So that card obviously was incredibly powerful. I mean, that's why it got banned. Without that card, without that access, the deck actually goes in top deck mode. And sure, you have Iteration, you have Kroxa, but you know, it's similar, again, it's very similar to the Blue-Red Murktide, but doesn't have the just boom, 2-mana 8/8 flyer that most decks just can't deal with.
Do you think it's gonna come back maybe, or is that doomed to get pushed out?
Well, it depends. Maybe they print a Black Murktide that's even better soon, so you never know.
Modern, ever-changing, every card, every set could be relevant.
Exactly, every set could be relevant. Ledger Shredder was very impactful, and they brought back the archetype.
Okay, what's your first deck at number 5?
Number 5, Amulet Titan. Amulet Titan is a deck that rewards mastery. You see it top-8ing all the time the events by players that played it for years, months. It really rewards you for knowing exactly what you do, exactly what lands you need to get out of a situation. It's also super powerful. It doesn't need that much to win the game on turn 3. You need like Amulet Titan, Dryad, Primeval Titan, and you just make an insane amount of value on turn 2, and it doesn't suffer Lightning Bolt, it doesn't suffer a lot of the cards, even like a Solid Shade. Sure, you can kill the Titan, but you just go like Simic Growth Chamber, Tolera West, you just grab a new one for the next turn. So it's incredibly resilient. I think it has a good matchup against 4-color, which its main strength. It struggles against Blue-Red Murktide, but you know, in Modern, that's why Modern's so great, because there's no decks that's a clear winner against this top 5. So you're gonna always have a deck that's like bad against some, good against some, and Amulet Titan is still a great choice, but you need to know how to pilot it.
Is Amulet Titan one of those decks that gets worse the more people prepare for it? Or is it so resilient that it actually doesn't matter if people are expecting it, just shows up consistently?
Where the more Magus of the Moon and Blood Moon that your opponent puts in the sideboard, the worse it gets. There was a time where my Blue-Red Murktide didn't have any copy of Blood Moon and Magus. Now I have 1 Blood Moon, 1 Magus.
Yeah.
So it really depends on the amount of hate. Then and this works for honestly all the decks. In Magic in general, maybe like 4-color and Blue-Red are more resilient to 8 cards, but decks like Living End, Hammer, and Amulet, the more you prepare for them, the worse they're gonna get.
Okay, number 4.
Number 4, Armor Time. Armor Time, similarly to Amulet Titan, doesn't need much to win the game. In fact, can kill you on turn 2.
Yeah.
Turn 1, Sigarda's Aid Ornithopter. Turn 2, Double Hammer. Of course, that's very lucky, but it happened. It happened to me on stream just before leaving to come to Berlin. So I died on turn 2 in Modern, and it was super easy. Armor Time is also very resilient. Thanks to Stoneforge Mystic and now the Reality Chip, you have this like go long plan. Sure, the absence of lures is gonna make so that you don't have the bring back lures, bring back whatever Esper Sentinel, which is another card at turn 1 to play Esper Sentinel, even better than a Vagabond. I think.
So when you're saying Hammer Time, I've seen a lot of different versions that are either mono white, blue white, green white.
Yeah.
Do you think, I assume you're talking about blue white when you say reality chip, that blue white is a clear favorite out of those things?
I don't think so. I think it's very dependent on the metagame. Because blue gives you access to Lavinia, maybe Melee Mage, Mana Leak, Teferi, Spell Pierce, so you're better against leading game. Black gives you access to Thoughtseize, to Pyrrhian Crusader, which is the best card you can think of against 4-color.
Yeah.
So you can maybe go Esper, but overall you have to choose. You have to choose kind of like what you want to gear towards, and Hammer Time does that. You choose black, you have a Pyrrhian Crusader in your sideboard, whereas if you go blue, you have all the counters for Living End.
Okay, so you would say even when you play Hammer Time, you have to be kind of up to date what colors you want to add in to white.
Exactly. Still, it has main deck on protection like Blacksmith Skill, which is a white protection card. Some people play a Spell Pierce, but you know, if you play black, you can play Thoughtseize, so it is a combo deck with protection.
Okay, number 3.
Number 3, we have Blue-Red Murktide. And
classic, yeah.
Blue-Red Murktide is a deck that I kind of built my brand on YouTube every Sunday. I got a Murktide video, and the deck actually changes a lot. It might seem like it's been around for over a year now. Modern Horizons is over a year old, and the deck was born there since it has Ragavan, Channeler, and Murktide Regent all got printed in that set, so it gave birth to this archetype. Now, some people are adding Ledger Shredder to it. Is now opening a lot of possibilities about how to build your deck. Should you cut your Channeler? Should you cut your just throwing here and there, some Murktide and things like that? So very, very still open format. Again, modern, it's just not solved. That's the coolness of it. I mean, lots of people play, it's one of the most played formats, but no one has the right answer.
Well, it also changes depending on what people are playing.
Exactly.
Would you make like a comparison to Legacy with exactly that deck? Because you have so many different cheap removal spells and creatures that it almost plays like a Legacy deck?
I think Blue-Red Delver in Legacy, it's the clear best deck. With Days and Forces, you can really, you have protection against all the things, and Wasteland. So you just have the answers for everything in the format. In Modern, you don't have such thing. You don't have, your counter is Counterspell, which, I mean, it's a great card, but it costs 2 mana. And you have 3 counters in Force of Negation, but the threats in Modern mostly come out of creatures, like, you know, Omnath and Solitude. So Force of Negation doesn't even see play that much in this archetype. But I think another very cool thing of Blue-Red is how to build your deck is, again, the metagame. Because Ledger Shredder is very good, maybe like on the play with a Mishra's Bubble, and especially if you already had a turn 1 Ragavan. But Channeler adds more threats to the deck, so it puts the 4-color deck in check. But of course, a turn 1 Channeler on the draw is very bad against Vran and 6. So it's really hard, situational, super situational, and it's just impossible to give a perfect answer.
I've seen lists from the newer Modern deck going away from Dragon Rage Channeler, just cutting it completely. Do you think that's like a reasonable route, or you think that the card is too good, you kind of have to include it?
I think that the card is excellent, and it gives the deck the aggro plan. Because if you only go control, I think Blue-Red Murktide is a deck that can lose in the long game, especially against the Solitude deck, the 4-color deck. So I think if you want to beat 4-color, you kind of need the Channeler. Although you're bad against Endurance, and Shredder is great against Endurance. It's really hard to give an answer on your question, and I mean, it's, you see every time a Blue-Red Murktide winning, and it's different than the other one in the top 8.
It sounds to me like when you play Amulet or Hammer Titan, you're kind of focusing on your deck, playing it well, and when you play Murktide, you're focusing on playing against your opponent's deck very well.
Yeah, it's a very reactive deck. You have Lightning Bolt, Unholy Heat, Counterspell, so...
Alright, with that, what is number 2?
Number 2 is 4-color Omnath, or Elementals.
Money pile.
Money pile, mid-range Counterspell. I think I decided to just group it all together. Yorion, Omnath. There's a lot of variation. Honestly, similarly to Blue-Red, the Modern Hive Mind, I think, hasn't decided what's good. Sometimes you see Flavor of the Week being Reason Reef with, you know, the Elemental package. Sometimes the Flavor of the Week is Expressive Iteration Counterspell. Sometimes you have Spreading Sea, sometimes you have Dress Down. Yeah, again, like, super hard to say what's exactly the perfect build. And honestly, whoever tells you they have the answer, they don't actually know it.
Even if they have the answer, in this moment, then the next 2 days it's gonna slip away.
I think personally, I like the elemental version more, the one with Eladam Recall, because Eladam Recall gives you access to all the toolbox. So Endurance, Magus of the Moon, Lavinia, Emrakul. There's just so many great creatures that you have access to. So if you go away from the Eladam Recall and go towards the blue version, so Expressive Iteration and Counterspell, you're gonna be more like reactive and control, but that's also very slow. So the faster deck of the format can just run over you.
Right.
The Living End, I think, has a better matchup against the controller version, so the one with Counterspell and Expressive Iteration, but struggles a little bit more against the version with Eladam Recall and Endurance.
So you even spawned one of the archetypes of this Omnath deck together with Javier, the combo version of 4-color Omnath, which is also a different branch out of all of those decks. So even when you play Modern, you know your opponent is playing Yorion, you're gonna assume it's Omnath 4-color, but then all of the deck building decisions your opponent made, you have no idea. They could have so many different packages and so many different ideas. You have to be always on top of the metagame to know, okay, if I see Eladam Recall, that means that. If I see some of the other cards, that means that.
Exactly, Eladam Recall just gives you such a huge the deck building decision. Like there was a time where I was playing a Magus of the Moon in the main deck, and that just won me the game one against a Primeval Titan on the deck.
And it's also not super expensive because you play 80 cards. So you have like as a one-off.
Exactly, the equity of. But yeah, for example, me and Javier, we love the Vivian combo deck, which I didn't put in the top 5, but it's basically an Omnath deck with Brandon 6 and Teferi, turn 2 Brandon 6 on the plays. One of the best things you can do.
So we got to number 2, and you spoiled it a little, but you have to gonna elaborate on that a bit more. Number 1, blue Living End, which used to be non-blue, but somehow it turned blue, like nowadays in the last recent years. Why is it number 1?
Living End is incredible. Sometimes it feels like not a Modern deck. It has 8 pieces of the combo. It's a 1-card combo because you only need to resolve Living End, which you get it with Shardless Agent and Outburst. Its combo, it just kills on the spot whenever you reanimate several creatures. And the deck is filled with interaction that are free, like Force of Negation and Grief, and cantrips. So your deck cannot fizzle, or like obviously can, but you're gonna get very unlucky.
The numbers are on your side.
Like it's not like a deck that I never mentioned in this top 6, which is Rhinos. I didn't mention it because I think it's worse than Living End. It's similar, maybe it has a better matchup against 4-color elementals, but overall it can fizzle because you're playing cards like Dead Gone, Bone Crusher Giant, Brazen Ball, Reveral cards that are not good.
Also going off is not that threatening.
Yeah, you're going off is just 2 4/4s, an Archmage Charm blocks it, or a 4/5 Tarmogoyf blocks it, and etc. With playing Living End, you suffer Graveyard 8. So you're like, oh, but if they play like a License Hearse, then it's annoying. It's true, a License Hearse is definitely annoying, but your deck has so much room to answer your opponent card, and you cycle. So you see actually, like if you side in 2 Force of Vigor and 2 Foundation Breaker, you're gonna see them 100% of the time. With Rhinos, maybe you don't, because you actually draw a card per turn.
Sometimes you're also quicker than like the Graveyard Hide. They have to pop it up once and you can fill it back again, or you cycle so much on turn 1 and 2 that Hearse is maybe too slow.
Yeah, no, I mean, sometimes it's so easy to just go end of turn, Otawari or Relic of Progenitus, and then be like, they pop it, and you're like, okay, but like you go cycle a 5/5 Grief, and then you just reanimate 2 things, wrathing your opponent board, and you discard them 2 cards, and you just win the game out of nowhere. Of course, there's cards that beat this deck. There's Teferi Time Reveler, which forbids your cascading, so the 4-color has that window. But you have Force of Negation, you have Mystical Dispute. You really have the tools to beat anything, and you are just discard your card, counter your card, and on turn 3, reanimate 5 things.
Yeah, and if you want to be good against Living End, you're gonna have to assess more sideboard slots and more something that somewhere else is missing. So you kind of have to really know, okay, do you want to put more cards and then be worse against the rest of the field? So you can't really overboard, and that's gonna put it in a great spot.
If we look at the decks that we talked about before, I can tell you easily what are its worst matchup. So Amulet Titan, maybe, you know, you struggle a lot against Blood Moon in general. So like blue, red, Murktide, Ponza, whatever. Armor Time, you struggle against you know, Solitude, Prismatic Ending, but also Grixis with all the Unholy Heat and Cool against Command. Blue Murktide, you struggle against 4-color. And 4-color, you struggle against Titan Shift, maybe Amulet Titan. But Living End, I can't tell exactly a deck that struggles against. But of course you can put your Flusterstorm, you can put like your Teferis, your Chalice of the Void on 0, so you can hate the deck, it's just that in Modern it's so big that you can't hate one deck. In Modern, really rewards you to play a proactive deck. That's a thing that I've always said, because the biggest the format is, the more you're rewarded for playing a proactive deck, instead of a deck like Blue-White Control, for example.
Makes sense.
And the Living End is just so consistent. 8 1-card combo, 8 free protection, and the rest of the deck is cyclers.
So, we have our top 5. If you don't agree or you do agree, you can share in the comments. Please, if you like the content, if you like Andrea here coming back, like, subscribe, put a comment in the video. Also, if you want to find more of Andrea's expertise, you can do that on many various channels.
Definitely, I play Modern almost every day on my stream, twitch.tv/Andrea Mengucci, and I have a YouTube channel where there's content every day on Andrea Mengucci video.
Yeah, of course, if you want to see Andrea back, write it again, then we're gonna bring Andrea back a 3rd, 4th, 5th, and whatever time, and he's gonna update out on Modern, on Pauper, all of these things. But with that said, this is a metagame thing. I think you already know what's coming because you did it. If you have to play a tournament for your life,
For your life on the line.
Life on the line. Yeah, there's no getting out. What would you pick?
I would pick Vivian Combo. I know the deck very well. I think the Vivian Combo deck, you can build it to beat Living End. I think my list with 4 Eldam Recall, 4 Flusterstorm in the sideboard, 4 Teferi, 4 Endurance in the 95, I can beat Living End. You are slightly ahead against 4 Color, but you know, the combo of course is a lot of expensive card that makes you worse against the Hammer, the Blue-Red, the Grixis, but I think it's a good deck, and I'm very confident with it. I bring it all the time recently to tournaments, and I do reasonably well, so that's my deck.
All right, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. See ya.